My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hi there, Neil. Now, hardly a day goes by without hearing someone talking about some aspect of our bodies. Do you know what I mean, Neil?
Yes, Rob. Almost every part of our anatomy seems to be the subject of endless debate. It could be our stomachs and what we eat. It could be our posture and how we stand. It could be our skin and how we should look after it.
Oh, yeah, I know. It gets very tedious. That means boring. So I don't really take any notice, as you can see.
Yeah.
But there's one part of our body you don't hear much about, and that is the chin.
The chin? You mean the small bit of bone under the mouth? It's not the most interesting part, is it, Rob? I mean, it doesn't do anything, does it? I must admit, I've never even thought about it. What's it for, anyway?
Well, some people think it's very useful for folding up large sheets and towels. You know, you hold one end under your chin like that with it.
Come on now, Rob, you're not being serious.
Of course not. But, seriously, the more you think about it, the more interesting the chin becomes.
You've still got to convince me, Rob. A chin is just a chin. That's all there is to it.
Not so fast, Neil. The chin may turn out to be a more important part of the body than you think. But before we get into that, let's turn to the quiz. Chin up, Neil.
A good phrase. It means stay positive and optimistic.
OK, well, how optimistic are you about getting this question right? How long ago do you think humans developed chins? Was it A, 150,000 years ago, B, 2 million years ago, or C, 5 million years ago?
I have no idea. They all sound far-fetched to me. Far-fetched means something is difficult to believe. But I think I'll go for 2 million years ago.
B, OK. Well, we'll find out if you're right or wrong later on. But the first thing to say is that humans are the only animals to have developed a chin. Let's listen to Dr. James Pampush from the University of Florida. What word does he use to mean it sticks out?
Humans are the only animal to have a chin. And by that I mean you have this bony projection underneath your teeth that sticks out past your teeth on the lower portion of your jaw. And it's such an unusual feature that in a way it sort of helps define what it means to be human.
So he used the word projection, which means something that sticks out from the main surface.
And the word jaw is used to describe the lower part of the face, which the chin is part of. So we know exactly what the chin is, but why did it develop?
Now, from what I understand, Rob, it has a lot to do with when humans started to cook their food. So the food they ate became much softer, and therefore our ancestors, that's the people related to us from a long time ago, they didn't need powerful jaws or sharp teeth anymore. And strangely, that made the jaw drop and produce that odd piece of bone we know as the chin. But sometime later, the chin became associated with sexual attraction in men. Males with prominent, that means easy to see, jaws were supposed to be attractive to women. And men with small chins were thought to be unattractive or weak people. They were even called chinless wonders sometimes. Chinless wonder, an interesting phrase. So let's have a look at yours then, Rob. Are you a chinless wonder?
Have a look.
It looks pretty normal to me. How about mine?
Well, Neil, your chin is rather pointed, if you don't mind me saying.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what that means, to be honest. So let's move swiftly on. Let's hear what Dr. Pampush has to say about this. He uses a word that means this theory is likely to be true.
It seems plausible to me that chins emerged as some kind of a feature and then later were selected on to be sex ornaments, but not the presence of a chin, but rather the shape of the chin being some kind of marker for sexual identity.
The word he used was plausible, meaning something that is acceptable or believable.
The word chin has also given us some interesting expressions. A double chin, for example, describes loose skin hanging beneath the chin, which makes people look like they've got two chins. It's something that people don't like and often try to get rid of.
And then there's the verb to chinwag. That means to talk a lot or to chat in a relaxed way with friends. But chinwag tends to be a conversation about things that aren't very important. But our conversation about chins is very important.
I guess so, Neil. Okay. So how about the answer to that question I asked you earlier? I asked, how long ago did humans develop chins? Was it A, 150,000 years ago, B, 2 million years ago, or C, 5 million years ago?
And I said 2 million years ago.
Ah, you know your chins? You were right.
Brilliant.
Well done. Chins really have been around for a long time. Now, before we go, it's time to remind ourselves of some of the vocabulary that we've heard today. Neil.
Tedious. Chin up. Far-fetched. Projection. Jaw. Ancestors. Prominent. Chinless wonder. Plausible. Double chin. Chinwag.
Thanks, Neil. Well, that brings us to the end of today's 6-Minute English. We hope you enjoyed the programme. You can hear plenty more on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Please join us again soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
6-Minute English
from the BBC.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6-Minute English
from bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6-Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hi there, Neil. Now, hardly a day goes by without hearing someone talking about some aspect of our bodies. Do you know what I mean, Neil?
Yes, Rob. Almost every part of our anatomy seems to be the subject of endless debate. It could be our stomachs and what we eat. It could be our posture and how we stand. It could be our skin and how we should look after it.
Oh, yeah, I know. It gets very tedious. That means boring. So I don't really take any notice, as you can see.
Yeah.
But there's one part of our body you don't hear much about, and that is the chin.
The chin? You mean the small bit of bone under the mouth? It's not the most interesting part, is it, Rob? I mean, it doesn't do anything, does it? I must admit, I've never even thought about it. What's it for, anyway?
Well, some people think it's very useful for folding up large sheets and towels. You know, you hold one end under your chin like that with it.
Come on now, Rob, you're not being serious.
Of course not. But, seriously, the more you think about it, the more interesting the chin becomes.
You've still got to convince me, Rob. A chin is just a chin. That's all there is to it.
Not so fast, Neil. The chin may turn out to be a more important part of the body than you think.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link to flick.
I want to talk to you about something kind of big. We'll start here. 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs had a bad day. A chunk of rock, 6 miles across, moving something like 50 times the speed of a rifle bullet, slammed into the earth. It released its energy all at once, and it was an explosion that was mind-numbing. If you took every nuclear weapon ever built at the height of the Cold War, lumped them together, and blew them up at the same time, that would be 1/1,000,000th of the energy released at that moment. The dinosaurs had a really bad day, okay? Now, 6-mile-wide rock is very large. We all live here in Boulder. If you look out your window and you can see Long's Peak, you're probably familiar with it. Now, scoop up Long's Peak and put it out in space. Take Mount Meeker, lump that in there and put that in space as well. And Mount Everest, and K2, and the Indian Peaks. And you're starting to get an idea of how much rock we're talking about, okay? We know it was that big because of the impact it had and the crater it left. It hit in what we now know as Yucatan, the Gulf of Mexico. You can see here, there's the Yucatan Peninsula, if you recognize Cozumel off the east coast there. Here is how big of a crater was left. It was huge. To give you a sense of the scale, Okay, there you go. The scale here is 50 miles on top, 100 kilometers on the bottom. This thing was 300 kilometers across, 200 miles. An enormous crater that excavated out vast amounts of earth that splashed around the globe and set fires all over the planet, threw up enough dust to block out the sun. It wiped out 75% of all species on Earth. Now, not all asteroids are that big. Some of them are smaller. Here is one that came in over the United States in October of 1992. It came in on a Friday night. Why is that important? Because back then, video cameras were just starting to become popular, and people would bring them, parents would bring them, to their kids' football games to film their kids playing football. And since this came in on a Friday, they were able to get this great footage of this thing breaking up as it came in over West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, until it did that to a car in New York. Now, this is not a 200-mile wide crater, but then again, you can see the rock, which is sitting right here, about the size of a football, that hit that car and did that damage. Now, this thing was probably about the size of a school bus when it first came in. It broke up through atmospheric pressure, it crumbled, and then the pieces fell apart and then did some damage. Now, you wouldn't want that falling on your foot or your head, because it would do that to it. That would be bad, but it won't wipe out, all life on Earth, so that's fine. But it turns out you don't need something 6 miles across to do a lot of damage. There is a median point between tiny rock and gigantic rock.
It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. And on the show today, toxic. Ideas about human change and resilience in a world full of toxins and chemicals. So let's start in one of the most toxic places on Earth.
There has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened. The Soviet version is this. One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant in the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died. The Soviets may have...
I think a lot of people would say Chernobyl is among the most toxic places in the world. Certainly, 30 years in the life of nuclear contamination is not a very long time.
Holly Morris is a filmmaker who's been to Chernobyl. It's a decommissioned nuclear power plant in present-day Ukraine, where 30 years ago,
On April 26, 1986.
something went very, very wrong.
The accident actually, because it was Soviet times and there was a lot of secrecy, there wasn't like, hey, guys, hello world, we've just had a big accident. They kept it under wraps. And in fact, it was a nuclear power plant in Sweden.
Radiation monitors in Sweden and Finland this morning are showing unusually high readings.
Where the alarms started going off.
At the moment, the source of those emissions is a mystery, but speculation has arisen of a nuclear power plant accident inside the Soviet Union.
And for days after, Russian officials denied how bad it actually was.
An official announcement from the Council of Ministers. There has been an accident at the Chernobyl atomic power station. One of the atomic reactors was damaged.
Russian officials said the loss of life was minimal.
This evening, Soviet television repeated the claim that only 2 people have died. They assured viewers all is under control.
All the while, in the area around the Chernobyl plant,
The nearest town to the plant is called Pripyat, which is essentially the company town.
everyone there was evacuated.
They were told they would be gone for 3 days. And they were loaded into buses and taken away. And of course, they never returned home again.
The accident caused a nuclear fire that burned for more than a week. Dozens of workers died at the plant that day. And in the years to come, thousands more people in the area would die from thyroid cancer. And even to this day, the area where they lived, known as the exclusion zone, remains empty. Well, almost. This voice is a woman from a film Holly Morris made. It's called the babushkas of Chernobyl.
A babushka is actually the Russian word for grandmother.
This babushka in Holly's film visits her family's plot in a cemetery, points out her relatives one by one.
Мама, дядько, бабушка моя, а це і дід мій.
She's one of just 100 women who were allowed back into the area around Chernobyl shortly after the accident, and they've lived there ever since.
Now, what's important to remember in terms of their survival is they were in their 50s at the time of the accident. And the older you are, the less detrimental the effects of radiation is. So the young people of Chernobyl, who, of course, were certainly not allowed to return to those villages, really took the brunt of the contamination at the time.
So why make such a dangerous choice? Here's Holly on the TED stage.
Chernobyl is one of the most toxic places on Earth. The soil, the water, the air are all contaminated, and the nuclear fire that burned for 11 days back in 1986 released 400 times as much radiation as the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The point being, no human being should be living anywhere near the dead zone, but they are. And almost all of them are women. The men having died off earlier in part due to overuse of alcohol, cigarettes, if not radiation. Now, hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated at the time of the accident, but not everybody accepted that fate. These are the last survivors of a group who defied authorities and, it would seem, common sense, and returned to their ancestral homes inside the zone. As one woman put it to a soldier who was trying to evacuate her for a second time, "Shoot me and dig the grave, otherwise I'm going home." I mean, why would they return to such deadly land? Were they unaware of the risks or crazy enough to ignore them, or both? The thing is, they see their lives and the risks they run decidedly differently.
So they move back, and you decide to tell their stories. And when you encounter these women, what was their life like?
You come up on a village, like there's a woman in the film named Hannah Zavorotnya, and I remember my first time I was going to the village. It's beautiful. It's a village that you might think of from 100 years ago, right? There's beautiful cottages, there's no cars, there's wind blowing, the light is lovely. And the women themselves.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hi there, Neil. Now, hardly a day goes by without hearing someone talking about some aspect of our bodies. Do you know what I mean, Neil?
Ah, yes, Rob. Almost every part of our anatomy seems to be the subject of endless debate. It could be our stomachs and what we eat. It could be our posture and how we stand. It could be our skin and how we should look after it.
Oh, yeah, I know. It gets very tedious. That means boring. So I don't really take any notice, as you can see.
Yeah.
But there's one part of our body